Hi, Misha here, and this is part 2. In the first one, we looked at most of your 7.62 by 39 mags like Russia and China, but we didn't get to all of them, so we'll continue on there with part 2. And then we'll also talk about AK74 mags and RPK 74 mags. Like I said in the first one, I needed to rearrange my mags anyway, get them on a new rack. This is just the one for AK mags. I have this thing about pouches. So with that, let's get into part 2. Romania. Once upon a time, many moons ago, when you bought a Wasser tin, it almost always came with a mag pouch for a few years. For a while, Romanian mag pouches were very cheap. I remember some places, if you bought them literally in bulk, as little as $1 or $2. And they had some interesting variants. Now, their mags were 30-round mags. I did mention the 20-rounders in the Hungarian section that they did. Those are pretty uncommon. But the 30-rounders, pretty straightforward. And I don't even know if I've got Romanians in these. I just put them in pouches. Now, they typically did do the 3-cell, more or less copied from Russian, with both pockets on the side and belt loops. But interestingly, they did a unique 4-cell made out of a type of leather, kind of a pebble grain, 2 fasteners. What's odd about this pouch, there's no storage for any gear. It literally just holds the 4 mags and there's no space for anything else. It has 2 belt loops and a semi-hard back. It's kind of got a seam. It's a pretty rigid pouch. And it's not rare, but you don't see as many of these. And one that's kind of unique to Romania is a 2-cell pouch. It holds 2 30-round mags. Typically has a button that could be fastened high or low. Pocket for a cleaning kit and oiler. Basically, they just took the 3-cell pouch and took the front off. I'm not saying it's true, but I often think of these as Romy G pouches. It seems like this would be a great pouch to issue to the Garda, because their guns were converted to semi-auto only, so they wouldn't need as many magazines and ammo. And of course, it does have the benefit of being thinner, lighter, and just kind of unique. They're kind of good pouches for holding much of anything. And there are, of course, several variations within these. But yeah, that is Romania, at least as it was during Soviet times and right after. Let's move on. East Germany, the DDR. Well, I talked about Romanian pouches being everywhere. East German pouches sure were too. They made a lot of these, and they were imported for a very long time, and most of the time they were in great shape. And these are actually really great pouches. They're very loose. You can fit a whole wide range of things in them. They have kind of this fastener style opening system. They have a large pocket on the side, because the German cleaning kit was quite large, that kind of roll-out style. And there's a few variants. You can get them with the pocket on the side, or without it. And you can get them with more of a curved shape, like this one, or more of a straight side. And sometimes they come in more or less a solid color, and sometimes they come in what's called the raindrop camouflage. And they have kind of an all-weather a moisture barrier to them. They're just regular belt straps in the back. As for the East German 7.62 mag, here's one. A few years ago, a company imported these and I bought a set. They weren't very much, $10-12. Early ones would be blued, later ones would have kind of that unique German paint on them. Of course, the welding quality, the machine quality is top notch, but they're just, you know, European pattern magazines. And that's really about it. You know, at least for this caliber in this place and time. I really like the RPK, you might have guessed. But instead of going by country, since there's usually only one or two pouches, we'll just kind of look at them all. So here we have a few different styles. Pretty similar, but a few variations. And these are a mix of Russian and Romanian. You know, come to think of it, there wouldn't be a Polish, because Poland never adopted the RPK. I don't know why, I never have seen a Bulgarian one, but then again, Bulgarian pouches can be very similar to Russian. Anyway, Romanian and Russian are the most common, and that makes sense because outside of Russia, Romania probably produced the most RPKs as the PM64 LMG. Now, in World War II, Russia learned the value of a stick mag. With the PPSH-41, they started off using a 70, 71, or 72 round drum, depending on who you ask. But for lots of reasons, they decided very quickly that a 36 round stick mag was just better. So for the RPK, from the outset, when it was put into production first in 1961, a 40 round mag was made. And of course you need a pouch for the mag. Here, like I said, we have a Romanian. It has a front pocket for an oiler. And in the back we have belt loops and shoulder strap. It's basically an enlarged version of a pretty common AK pouch. Here's kind of an interesting variant. This is a later Romanian. Still has the pocket. The reason I say it's Romanian, I think, is because the material of the strap, it's like the Romanian sling, which was introduced in the late 80s. But it doesn't have quite the same pattern of belt loop. This is all one piece. It just comes down. Versus the more loopy nature of this that kind of comes down and doubles back. And yeah, it's just simpler, a little bit lighter weight. And over here we have a Russian pouch. It does not have the front pocket. And you can tell it's a later one because it has the button for either size. And it does have the belt loop. As you can see, Russian is very close to Romanian in other ways. So with that, let's open these up. So here are three types, three generations, if you will. The original mag was, just a AKM ribbed mag, extended out to 40 rounds. Russian ones would be paint over phosphate. Romanian ones can be that or just phosphate. I remember during the assault weapons ban, these were pretty prized because 40 round capacity was unheard of. 40 round AR mags sucked. So it took a little convincing for me to believe that the 40 round AK mag was reliable, but they are. Constant curve, and of course they'll fit AKs, RPKs. They're good mags, of course they're heavy, and they do lead to monopotting. And when they went to the AG4 mag for the AKM, of course they did the same for the RPK and 7.62x39. And the same follows. These are made by Malat, or at least branded by Malat. This one just has a mold number. Some of them have a little shield on them. And moving quite a bit more in time, we have the modern Bulgarian Waffle Mag. This is made for their LMG. That's the name of it. It's not really an RPK as such. They never really produced an RPK, true. But it's the same concept. They took their 30 round Waffle Mag and they extended it to 40. And again, a little expensive, but they are very reliable. And very well built with steel. And of course they're lighter than a steel mag as well. And Russia makes their own modern polymer Molot mags, but the ones in 7.62x39 are pretty uncommon in the USA. Heck, even the 5.56 and even the 5.45 are not exactly common. But with that, yeah, everyone, when they think RPK, they do think drum. A 75 round top loading drum was standard with the RPK from the beginning. Typically 1 drum and 4 magazines were issued, although later on, sometimes the drum would be dropped and they would carry 2 4-cell pouches of 40 round mags instead. It made more sense. Of course, in China, they're pretty famous for making their 100 round drum, which is a backloader. And one of these is in a Chinese RPD pouch, and one of them's in a Polish, but it's a bigger mag. This one is a Russian pouch, and these are Romies. The Romies tend to be a little bit stiffer. They have one big belt loop in the back. And the Russian pattern, a little more flexible. And the idea here, you could pull the top off and directly insert your mag into your gun, still keeping it in its pouch, which is good for a lot of reasons. That's why they're kind of buckled in here and what have you. Like I said, Poland never adopted the RPK, so they never made theirs. And yeah, most people just got theirs from Russia or Romania, or they went for a clone from China, but they didn't ever really make a real RPK either. So yeah, we'll get these out real quick. So here's the Russian mag out of its pouch. The Romanian would look the same. And the idea, you would do that and to load up. And it's kind of canted forward. Actually, it doesn't hang down very far. And it's pretty heavy gauge steel. These would be paint over phosphate for Russia. Romania, as usual, kind of might do their own thing. So looking at the Chinese pattern, these are a little different here. For one, this is on the side. It's a little kickstand, a little monopod. Whereas this one is more towards the bottom. This one has your typical key here. This one's actually spring-loaded. Now, the funny thing about Chinese, of course, these were banned from import years ago, and mysteriously Romanian branded ones have come in, and even Korean. I have my doubts about their real country of origin, but it doesn't matter. To load it, you just pop that up and open it up. Drop your rounds in and catch your cord. Great. And then, of course, you have to wind it up with the winder thing. That's the official term. This one's a little stuck, at least one-handed. There we go. So a little bit different styling there. So, backloading or top loading, people have different opinions, but these are the two major RPK 75 round mag styles. There are occasionally 100 round mags seen from China, but yeah, 75 is the standard. And now we come to the 5.45x39, and of course we need to start with Russia. The pouches, of course, you've seen these before. Here are the more modern, say 80s and 90s pouches. Picked several of these off of Numeric many years ago. They're very nice. They're a virtually new condition. This one has kind of a pebble grain strap. This one's smooth. Holds a cleaning kit. It's essentially the same 3-cell pouch we've seen before, just a little bit updated. And of course, the original magazines here. Let's take a look. Both Tula and Mishaco made the AG4 material mags. Very much like the 7.62x39 version. Just a little smaller and a little less of a curve. And they would manufacture these for a bit of time until the mid-80s when they started going over to polymer. But in the beginning, they were plum. There's a Mishaco. Here's another Mishaco. Here's a Tula that's often known as a shiny Tula. So some of these were shinier. Some of them were more of a matte finish. And some of them started off with matte, but got shiny through use. These are good, more modern polymer mags, still with the metal reinforcement. And they could have seen service late in Afghanistan. Why did they do plum? Because communism, damn it, that's why. And then, of course, beginning in the 90s, Mishaco, becoming Izhmash, would start doing what we call true black mags. Very much the same styling, just a better, more modern fiberglass reinforced polymer material. Still has metal lugs and more of a matte, less shiny finish. And that's more or less where they're at today. There are some newer mag styles, but that's kind of what I've got in my collection here for Russian mags. When talking 7.62x39, only Russia made the AG4 mags. But for the AK74, there was one other country, East Germany, the DDR. For a relatively brief time, they would make basically the same mags. There would be different mold numbers on the bottom here. But then it would be more or less smooth on this side. Where the Russian would be a little different, of course. And again, at one time, these populated store shelves everywhere, and really good condition. There's a lot of East German gear that was everywhere and lightly used, because they only switched over to the 5.45 in the mid-80s, so it was not very old at the time. But that's really about all they did for this, at least for military, at least what I have. But with that, let's move on to a country that made quite a few minor variations. Bulgaria. They really just have the one 30-round 5.45 mag, and it's either going to be Circle 10, and I believe the other one's Circle 21. But to make up for the body not really changing, they do it in lots of different colors. I'm not sure what exactly I pulled out at random here. Colors not being my speciality. Now the newer ones are more of a black. I believe this is one of the black ones. Very similar to a modern Russian black. But older ones could be quite a few shades of red and brown. There was some that were called fire engine red, some that were more of a sand brown, some more of a darker chocolate brown. They've even done some in different colors for the export market, like in OD green. And up until recently, the surplus mags, if they were plum out of Bulgaria, they were actually rebranded Russian. A lot of times they would take Russian mags and scrub them back in the day and sell them over here. But I believe more in the 21st century they have started making plum-colored mags in Bulgaria just to satisfy. But it's the arsenal plum, not the original Russian plum. There is quite a bit of difference. But yeah, these are the Bulgarian mags. They were kind of fun to collect all the different colors back in the day, because you could buy kind of grab packs for $29.95 for mags in a pouch. I think Apex and Copes had them. And you never know what kind of wild, crazy colors, or even some Russian mags. That was always kind of the big deal back then. If you got a bunch of plums, you were always happy because, hey, Russian, even if the marking might have been scrubbed off. But these are the mags that Bulgaria would start making when they went to the 74 and still ship today. Well, at least when they were in stock with their 74 guns. And yeah, really Bulgaria and Bulgaria and East Germany, the only ones that did a more or less direct clone copy of the AK74. The others, well, they went a different route. Poland and Romania. And we actually have some new pouches here. This is a later style Polish 3-cell. There's still more recent ones, but yeah, kind of progressing on with the same material. And this is a new pattern of 4-cell. And it's kind of got a semi-hard top, which is neat. And, more interestingly, it has the spot on the side for the Tantals bipod. And then it has a large pocket on this side. It's very much like a East German pouch in a lot of ways, but in other ways different top and everything. But these are the mags for the Tantal. There are two types. As for Romania, well, they have basically the one type of mag for the PA86, and it's still technically in use today. They also made a new mag pouch for it with the same kind of closures like you might find on East Germans, and two very big pockets on the sides. This is a very generous, deep, flexible mag pouch too. I really like these. And for a while these weren't really available, but in more recent years they've been imported. So let's look at the mags themselves. So we have two types for the Tantal. The one probably most common to people is another black polymer mold number down here, and just nothing really down there. It does have metal reinforcements. These were produced for the second part of the Tantal run, but originally a 30-round steel mag was made for it because the Tantal was more based on the AKM than the AK74 itself, so therefore the magazines were modified in a sense. Now, they have the clip guide on the top, the cutouts for it, and they're not as curved. They have the spine, but very similar for a while. But it makes sense why they would go to this. It's lighter, probably cheaper to make, and more durable. But Romania did much the same thing. For the PA86, they had steel 30-round mags. And this is what they use today. I've never seen a polymer Romanian 545 mag. They do make a 40-round extended version for their RPK, but I've never seen those in USA. I'd love to find one day. They are slightly different from the Tantal. For one thing, they're a little bit heavier because they're just a smidgen wider up here. That's again because the PA86 is based more on the AKM than the 74, which means sometimes these Romanian mags don't like to work well in, say, Russian or Bulgarian guns. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But they're a little on the big spec. I just think they're kind of neat. And, yeah, that kind of gets us through this AK74 mags. There's not near as many because far fewer nations manufactured this gun. Heck, far fewer used it. So there just isn't the variation in magazines. And these are the only steel ones that were in military service. China might have made some for their Type 88, but that was more of an export thing. And they were all in service for a very brief period of time, frankly. Of course, there was also an RPK chambered for 545 by 39. RPK 74 mags. And of course these are going to be Russian because that's kind of what we've got. Not surprisingly, they started off as being the AG4 material. Now whereas the 7.62 version of the RPK had 40-round mags, this had a slightly extended 45 round mag. That's because while a kind of weird waffle pancake mag was prototyped for the 74, really they realized the drum mag for the RPK was not great. So this time they just decided to issue 8 45 round mags per RPK 74 and have done with it. So that's what they did. And in the 80s, they would switch from the AG4 to the polymer. And yeah, there would be plum RPK 74 45 round mags. I don't have any, sorry. I do have the modern version here though. The true black one from Molat. Still holds 45 rounds. There's a version very similar to this that's for the 5.56, but it's a little different angle, so they're not interchangeable. I've had them before, but in fact I had several of them for a long time. But yeah, this is the modern RPK 74M type magazine. And while they haven't adopted a drum, they have worked on and produced some quad stacks. Now this is a puff gun quad stack, but it's based off the Molat design because Molat is now sanctioned. I can't talk. This holds, well, quad stack. 60 rounds, but because it is a quad stack, it's a little fat, but if you compare it to the 45 rounder, it actually hangs down significantly less. It's a shorter mag. Wider, yes, but shorter. And it holds 33% more ammo. The internals of these are actually pretty cool. And they do have metal lugs. So while most RPKs still use the 45 rounder, some 60s are in modern Russian military service. And as far as other foreign nations, the only other LMG and 5.45 is the Romanian offering. Otherwise, that's kind of it. Well, I greatly appreciate you tuning in. Hope it was entertaining to some extent. I definitely like pouches, and for a long time you could pick them up very affordably, so they were fun to collect. They're also really neat, as you're starting to see, by keeping your mags together. I can put a certain type in a certain pouch and I don't have to shuffle through them. And on top of that, they protect your mags, at least from getting banged together. I mean, they're not going to do a great job against getting wet unless they have the moisture barrier like the East German, but yeah, it's better than nothing. They're at least separated in their little pockets. So it's been one of those things that's both collectible and historical, and honestly very practical. And I did do an extended version on Patreon, just with a few outtakes and a few little added things. For the YouTube version here, I tried to streamline it a bit to not bore anyone. So I do hope you enjoyed it. If you could, do please like, share, and subscribe. And if you're not a Patreon supporter and would like to be, please check out the link and kind of see what we've got going on over there. Well, next time, for the final part, we'll kind of take the odds and ends and the odd little interesting things. Till then, this is Misha, and I'll catch you very soon.